Our first day went as well as one can expect first days to go. Most of Green Hills of Stranglethorn, Chapter 1. Our first day went as well as one can expect first days to go. Most of our time was preoccupied with making the necessary arrangements to establish base camp. Located in an ideal setting, but a freshwater river injet. Judging by the old abandoned docks nearby, this site was inhabited some time ago. As for the original inhabitants, only time can tell that tale. For this expedition, I have assembled Ajak Rovek and Sir S.J. Elgaden, along with my trusty servant Barnil Stonepot. I fought alongside Ajax's father. I fought alongside Ajax's father's side in many battles in defense of the alliance. Seeing her grown is quite special. Her father schooled her well in the ways of weaponry. Her skills with a bow make me wonder if there is elven blood running through those veins. Sir S.J. Elgaden comes from human aristocracy. His father, Count Elgaden, was renowned for his generosity. It was the Count who lobbied for improved working conditions for the Stonemasons Guild during the restoration of Stormwind after the Second Great War. In the years that followed, after Stormwind betrayed the Stonemasons Guild, Sir Elgaden grew bitter about the role of nobles within the kingdom. He no longer wished to uphold the position that his father's bloodline had earned him in the House of Nobles. But I digress. The purpose of the story is not to act as a political treaty or a biography. This is the account of my experiences hunting big game in the green hills of Stranglethorn. We rose with the sun. Barno began to prepare the morning meal. I noticed Ajax's attention was somewhat distracted. The day's trek would be long and our hunt would bring us close to danger. Lack of focus could easily lead to an errant mishap. But Ajax seemed unable to divert her gaze from Barno, who stood by the edge of the river, rinsing out his mess kit. Just as I was about to question Ajax's lack of interest in the day's hunting strategy, she drew from her quiver an arrow and unleashed a shot right towards poor Barno. But it was not Barno that Ajax was shooting at, for Bargil stepped aside, mouth agape, large river crocodiles floating to the surface with Ajax's arrow perfectly placed between his large two eyes. We set out towards the west, through the thick overgrowth of the tangled jungle. Moving with slow, deliberate steps, we traced through thick foliage in search of prey. The morning passed in frustrated silence. Nothing was stirring in the vale, not even a breeze. By the afternoon, the expedition had grown restless. Barnil no longer strode with the cautious steps of a predator claiming prey. Rather, he clumsily clumped along the path, often stepping out noisily on dry leaves or fallen branches. During one such misstep, O'Gadden laid a heavy hand on Barnil's shoulder. Ajax and I gave a casual glance, assuming the man was simply giving Barno a much-needed scolding for his careless behavior. Gadden, however, gestured slowly with his head towards a nearby fallen tree. Gazing back at us were two piercing black eyes just above a mouth of razor-sharp fangs. I'm gonna be honest with you folks, there's a slight amendum. I'm having difficulty focusing here. I find my attention wavering, my eyes fogging over. It's fine reading, but I've just... I know as I'm reading, my eyes are defocusing or scanning ahead, so it's hard for me to actually read the lines I'm on. So if I'm stuttering, that's why. The beast was a male Stranglethorn tiger. Before I could cock my rifle, Gadden raised his crossbow and fired upon the beast. The bolt missed its mark and caught the beast heavily in the left flank. The tiger made a futile attempt to flee, but its wound was too grave. The beast stumbled for a few tragic seconds before Barno finished the kill with a thrown axe. The kill brought about a festive mood amongst the expedition. Barno poured mead for all to enjoy. But our festivities were short-lived. As we were preparing the corpse for transport back to base, we were all caught off guard by a horrendous growl. In all my years, I've never heard anything so blood-curdling. On a rocky precipice above, silhouetted by the setting sun, I could make out the largest cat of prey I've ever laid eyes upon. I was able to loose one clumsy volley with my rifle, but the cat held its ground. He growled once again, this time louder than the first, and vanished. We gathered our belongings and headed solemnly back to camp. I promised the expedition that we would spend the next day hunting panthers, as their furs are high in demand throughout Azeroth. Mean the Kingdom of Stormwind, could mean the planet. It varies heavily. Um, when you're looking at the older tales, it varies heavily. After a certain point, Stormwind is never referred to as Azeroth, but if you look at like the old Warcraft 3 stuff, if you look at some of the old novels we've seen, old lore books we've seen here, they do call it Azeroth. It only makes sense that such a man should exist when all the able-bodied hunters, trappers, and fur traders off. Uh, I had promised the expedition would spend the next day hunting panthers, as their furs are in high demand throughout Azeroth. It only makes sense that such demand should exist, with all of the able-bodied hunters, trappers, and fur traders off giving their lives so valiantly named alliance. Ajax and Sir Agaden were anxious to learn how to hunt effectively with a dwarven rifle. The two humans leave their primitive ranged weapons at base camp. Barnil and I outfitted them with some of the Ironforge's finest firearms. On this day we ventured to the south, following some fresh panther tracks. Soon we reached a ravine spanned by an enormous rope bridge. I could not help but think of Brand's descriptive writings of the region when I saw the engineering marvel. So often it was assumed that native trolls were a primitive and uneducated race. Yet as I gazed upon the master craftsmanship of the bridge, I was able to recognize the skill with which the troll builders overcame the seemingly impossible feat. Before long, Ajax uh, before long, Ajax tracked the panther to the southwest. We walked quietly, guns at the ready, in anticipation of our prey. A snapping of twigs from nearby copse of trees drew our attention immediately. Something was in there. One certain glance at Barno was enough to convey my thoughts. Barno slowly lowered his rifle. The kill was not for us. It was for our human companions. Countless panthers had lost their lives in front of our smoking barrels. This kill would be for the humans. Both Ajax and Sorgaden stood poised, guns leveled at the bristling overgrowth at the base of the swaying trees. The midday sun beat heavily upon us. A slow trickle of perspiration trailed down from Elgaden's temple as he pulled the pin back. Upon the sound of the click, the thick flora parted, and a large panther, a beautiful specimen, darted out onto the plain. The humans trained their sights. Wrong use of sight. It should be S-I-G-H-T-S. Sights, S-I-T-E-S, is like, this is a site. It's a base camp. It's a site. There's the rebel camp above. It's a site. It's a place. The humans trained their sights on the panther as it ran along the edge of the tree line. The barrels of their guns moved in perfect parallel tandem. Barno gave me an urgent glance, but I shook my head no. This hunt was for the humans, not Barno or me. Elgaden fired a booming shot, missing the panther altogether. Apparently he was unprepared for the violent kickback of the rifle blast. His gun tossed back violently in his arms, the barrel swooping sideways and came up behind Ajax's barrel. Ajax had chosen that exact moment to pull the trigger. The rifle, the aim now knocked clumsily towards the tree line, went off with a distinctive boom. A flock of birds screamed out of the canopy, scattering in every direction. A plume of smoke rose from the tree line. We watched in awe as a tremendous branch fell squarely on the fleeing panther, breaking its back. As weeks passed, our stockpile of panther and tiger skins grew immense. I decided it was time for the expedition to shift our focus to a new challenge: raptors. The humans, while appreciative of the training Barno and I offered, decided to refrain from hunting with firearms. Ajax was much more comfortable with a finely strung bow, and Sir Agaden never left camp without a sturdy crossbow. We set out at first light, heading south past the Takashi ruins. Takashi ruins. Barno voiced concern that we might encounter members of Bloodscalp tribe. I remind Barno that the Bloodscalps were more concerned with destroying their tribal enemy, the Skull Splitters. Needless to say, Barno was not comforted in the slightest. I, however, had a loaded rifle, a satchel full of gunpowder, and 3 deadly hunters with me to ease any concerns of an unfriendly ambush. I've stood before a towering inferno on the battlefield, the army of the Burning Legion advancing from all directions. an unruly band of trolls that seems as harmless as a jackrabbit in the hills of Dunmoreau. We passed the taxi ruins without event, much to Barnow's relief. The party proceeded to head westward toward the Great Sea, skirting the ruins of Zolkunda, just to the south. As we ascended the high sea bluffs, we spotted our first raptor. The beast never so much as detected our presence. In fact, the only greeting he received from the expedition was a bullet between the eyes. So Garden let out a hearty hurrah as Ajax nodded towards me with keen approval. I sifted through my pack in search of my pipe, hoping to enjoy a celebratory smoke. Barnil began to scurry up the hillside to retrieve the raptor's corpse. I stared at the fallen beast with satisfaction that accompanies every big kill. But I could not bask in the glory of the kill for long, for when I turned my eyes towards the horizon, several silhouettes appeared cresting the hill, just above poor Barnil. "Flee, Barnil!" I shouted. Ajax, Zuragadin, and myself loosed a volley of bullets, arrows, and bolts over Barnil and towards the pursuing raptors. One of us landed a kill amidst the confusion. Our hastily aimed shots were enough to buy Barnil's escape. Barnil clambered down the hill and rejoined the party. We scurried off into the jungle, a pack of ferocious lash-tailed raptors stalking our every move. The hunters were now the hunted. There we go. I led the party towards the sea, hoping the shoreline would provide refuge from the raptors. In our haste, we drifted too far north to a precarious high elevation. A mistake was made. The fault was mine. We stopped just short of a sheer cliff. The raptors were just a few paces behind us. I stepped slowly forward, gun raised. Let these brave hunters to their death. I would die defending them. Lash-tailed raptors are particularly fierce, known for their unrelenting bloodthirst. They far outnumbered us, but I would be damned if I let them kill me and my companions without shedding some of their own blood first. Ajax and Zuragadin readied their weapons, flanking me on either side, our backs to the sea. Barnil let out a defeated sigh and drew his axe. The lash-tails were almost upon us. Their steady stride had slowed. They were stalking their prey now, for they knew they had us trapped. Then something miraculous happened. From off to our side we heard the distinct and terrifying roar of the great white tiger. Despite their numbers, raptors turned and scattered in all directions. We saw but a brief white flash as the tiger darted past us and pounced on one of the raptors. No command needed to be given. All 4 members of our party knew it was time to run. We sprinted all the way back to base camp, never slowing. Later that night we sat quietly around the campfire, knowing our lives had been saved by a bizarre twist of fate. Such are the risks of the big game hunter. We toy with fate by delivering it, yet each of us at some point will face fate's razor-sharp teeth. This dwarf is just glad that moment did not come upon the green hills of Stranglethorn.